Welcome everyone to the Q&A session for our upcoming course, Redefining Love, the 7 steps to true intimacy and a profoundly passionate life. I'm Lisa Bonise, and I'm really looking forward to hosting this Q&A conversation for the Shift Network, where we'll explore the teachings of Ken Page and address questions about his upcoming 7-week course, Redefining Love, which begins Thursday, April 4th. Later, I'll explain how you can participate in the course even if you can't attend the live sessions, but first, I want to introduce our guest. Ken Page is a renowned psychotherapist, a popular Psychology Today and Huffington Post blogger, and the author of the best-selling book, Deeper Dating: How to Drop the Games of Seduction and Discover the Power of Intimacy. He's been featured on Oprah.com and in the Oprah Magazine, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Cosmopolitan, Fox News, The Advocate, the Chicago Tribune, and many more. Ken's work has been read by millions, and he's led hundreds of workshops on intimacy and spirituality for thousands of participants of all ages, backgrounds, sexual orientations, and gender identities. And in just a few minutes, we're going to open up for your questions. But first, I want to welcome Ken, who's going to begin our conversation by telling us a little bit about how people can change their field in their intimacy life. Welcome, Ken. It's so great to be with you today.
I'm so glad to be here, Lisa. It's great to work with you. And everybody, I'm so glad to be connecting with you, and I have a lot to share. I also just want to add that I am the host of the Deeper Dating podcast, and that's a new venture that has brought me a lot of joy and a lot of love, and has hopefully helped a lot of people as well. What I want to talk about now, though, is I want to talk about one of the most profound things that I have seen in my decades of work as a psychotherapist and a coach specializing in the search for intimacy. It's something that took me decades really to understand, see, notice, and recognize. And it is about the field. I call it the field. And what that is that when people make certain changes in their lives, and I'm going to say what those changes are, when they make those changes, their field begins to shift. And what I mean by that is that somehow they start changing, their relationships begin to change. And they change in amazing ways, and they change in unexpected ways. And that happens for a lot of reasons that I'm going to be talking about. But when the field shifts, when that happens, one's world begins to shift. I guess I'm going to say something first about what creates that amazing field shift, which you recognize in your intimate relationships, you recognize in your relationship with yourself, and you recognize in a broad way in your whole relationship with the world. So in this work, the first stage of this journey, always, this is in my book, this is in my intensives, my courses, everything. The first stage and the foundational stage of this entire journey revolves around the discovery, the unearthing, the cherishing, and the dignifying of your core gifts. It's an amazing, amazing thing. And here's what it comes down to. That the parts of you that you have tended to be embarrassed by, ashamed of, kind of awkward about because of their intensity or their tenderness. So we get acculturated to be embarrassed about those parts, to be ashamed of those parts. And if they've been taken advantage of, or we've been abused or shamed around them, all the more so. But the truth is, and the kind of miracle here is, in just the places where you feel the most tender about revealing yourself, those are the places where your core gifts lie. You discover your core gifts in the things that touch your heart the most, in joy and in pain. And when you put the dots together, which is the first stage of what we do in this work, you begin to see that the things you felt funny about are your genius. The things you felt ashamed or timid to reveal are your treasured qualities that you'd been taught not to honor. And when you learn to honor them, things begin to change. And I don't mean just accept them, I mean treasure them. I mean begin to see their beauty. Begin to see them as portals into a deeper love, a deeper meaning, a deeper creativity, a deeper spirituality. You begin to resurrect them from shame. And you begin to honor them. And that means you are honoring your true self. And that's holy. And that's huge. And it is life-changing. And that's the first stage of our journey. In my work with people, the first stage, and in this course, the very first stage, and we'll spend a bunch of time with it, and I never move ahead to the next classes until I hear from everyone that they are understanding this, getting it, and literally getting a felt, living sense of their own core gifts. And everyone so far has experienced that. Then we move into understanding how the lack of treasuring those parts of ourselves has led us into situations and relationships that dishonor those parts of ourselves, that chip away at our sense of worth. And as I've said before, there's a formula here. The degree to which you cherish your core gifts is the degree to which you lose your taste for people and situations and interactions that chip away at that genius, at that tenderness, at that you-ness. And when that happens, that's the beginning of the second stage of the shift. Your attractions begin to change. Yes, your sexual attractions. Yes, your romantic attractions. But also your attractions to jobs, to people, to environments, to actions, to activities begin to change, because there is an honoring and dignifying of these soul qualities. And this is what also happens. And this is where the field begins to change. When you have been able to name and identify your core gifts, and you start getting this love relationship with them, and when you do the daily practice of the inner mentor work, which we are going to be doing in the course, and actually, there's now, it looks like there's going to be a research study beginning because of the impactful power of this process, studying why the inner mentor process works so powerfully. It looks like that's going to be happening. Anyway, when you are connected to your inner mentor and the kind of like stream of your own wisdom and love that comes from that place, which is fabulous in its own right, when you begin to do the processes I teach that help you discover and honor your core gifts, when you've done all of that, and you find that your attractions begin to change, then your field has changed. And this is what I say to people all the time, and I've seen it countless times. And I've said that it's one of the closest things to a miracle that I've seen in my work. When those things happen, your field begins to change. Different people come into your life, your attractions begin to change, your interactions with your loved ones begin to change, because you are finally reorganizing around the central source of your core gifts, instead of being organized around self-protection. Instead of being organized around defending, you become organized around dignifying and expressing those qualities with generosity and bravery. And that's when your field changes. If you're single, you find yourself meeting better people. If you're in a relationship, you find amazing shifts of intimacy in your emotional relationship, your sexual relationship. In your own spiritual life and your creative life, you find the same thing happen. The field begins to shift when you treasure the parts that always were the very nucleus of your being, but you had maybe an iffy relationship to them because you've been so hurt by them. The more you treasure them, the more your life blossoms. The field of your life actually shifts. And when that happens, when we get past the second stage of this journey, I tell people, go out, play, experiment, because your field has shifted. Different things will come, and then come back and share your stories. And this experience of the field shifting with these first two steps it's glorious. It's glorious. It's affirming. It's validating. It's beautiful. It's tender. And I'm sharing this with you to say that it's something that you can look forward to beginning to occur as you do this work and in this course, as you get through these first two amazing self-treasuring steps, and as you begin to deepen and develop a loving relationship with your fabulous inner mentor. This is living love. This is learning to live from the stream of love inside of you and clearing the path, making it safe and making it beautiful for yourself to emerge. And I promise you that your life changes as a result of that, not because these teachings are so particularly special sauce, but because it's the way the world is built. When we honor our core, our world opens up. And that's what I'm so excited to teach you, a path to make that happen. And it's a path I've seen change countless people's lives. And I see it, I get letters every day. It's a process of learning to love from the inside out. And how could that not work? And that's what I wanted to share first before we begin our Q&A.
Okay, thank you so much, Ken. That's very exciting, and I think we'll get a lot of people wanting to know more about that. So for those of you watching, we have the rest of our time together to dive into your questions for Ken as we prepare for his upcoming course. Again, it's called Redefining Love, and it begins Thursday, April 4th. And if you want to check out the website as we're chatting and learn more about the 7-week course, you can visit intimacyandtruelove.com. That's 4 words with no spaces, intimacyandtruelove.com, to see the full description. So let's go ahead and get started with questions. If you have a question for Ken, you can go ahead and type it in, and I'll be happy to read them aloud. In the meantime, we've got a few questions already waiting. So let's take a question here from Joy, because you mentioned the inner mentor process. And for those of you who didn't catch it, Ken gave a very wonderful demonstration of it in his conversation with Stephen Dinan. You can go back and watch that. But maybe, Ken, you can give people just an idea, just in case they did miss it. But the question is, this is from Joy, who says, how can we get beyond critical voices regarding the inner mentor? It's so easy to think this is something else that won't work.
Okay, here's what I have to say about that. But first, let me explain the inner mentor process. But I'm even going to back up a drop further, and I'm going to say that the research on well-being is showing us that self-compassion is one of the greatest tools for a good life. Now, that's different than self-confidence and all those assertive kind of qualities. It's even different than self-acceptance. What it means is treasuring the beating heart of our humanity in whatever situation we're in. And that's the living experience of love. Somehow, this inner mentor process, and one of the key processes that have been researched to develop self-compassion is to imagine a loving self. This does even more. The inner mentor process does more than imagining a loving self. It teaches you how to imagine the essence of you. So I guide you in a practice where you imagine the you that you're meant to be. The you on the other side of your inner glass ceilings. The you that is kind of the you that's been waiting to come out. It's the you that you feel when you feel like good in yourself, when you're with people who love you, when you feel like you believe in yourself and you can risk and you can shine and you can share. That's it. That's the inner mentor place. So you imagine yourself really living from that place. And then you do an exercise based on a lot of Gestalt therapy principles, which is you don't just imagine that, you jump in. You move into that stream of being that self so that you have a living experience of it. And then you look at yourself, the you of right now, struggling, having questions, wanting deeper love. And you kind of almost imagine like taking that person's face in your hands and thinking, what do I most want to impart? Like if you're with a child who has a big question or someone you love who's on tenterhooks about something, and you gather your wisdom and your compassion to give them the best answer because you care so deeply. That's the zone that you go into, but you go into it from that place of the you you're meant to be. And the guidance that you give then becomes your daily practice. These are the greatest gems to get you deeper intimacy that exist. They're better than my ideas. They're better than anything you could read in many cases. They are like living gold. And then you make that into your daily meditation. And all you do is love that message each day. But the act of doing that each day transforms you. So this is a fabulous question. And what I want to say is, when you do the inner mentor process and you come out with this wisdom, almost every single time, something in you will resonate and you will know that it's wisdom. You will know that it's wisdom. Afterwards, you may have doubts. That's why I ask everybody in the middle of the day or at the end of the day, look at your notes that you wrote to yourself. Because in your head, you will flee the truth and the beauty and go back into what someone I know describes as second guessing or outsmarting your own intuition. When you read it, you will remember the love and the wisdom. So the key is to continually. I heard a wonderful statement once, which was, the best way out of an old hypnosis is through a current relationship with its antidote. So our hypnosis is to doubt and demean our intuition. As you develop a current relationship with the antidote to that, which is your inner mentor, little by little you will become stronger, clearer, happier, simpler, and more loving, because it's your wisdom at the source. So my thought there is, let those critical voices come. Don't fight them. Know that the closer you become and the more that you do this process, the more you're going to trust in the beauty of your inner mentor's messages.
Okay, well, thank you so much. That was very helpful. We've got a question here from Aisha, who says, how does the information in this course compare to your book, Deeper Dating, and your podcast?
Oh, thank you for asking that. It's the same. It's the same. The difference is I guide you individually and directly. I adore my book, and it's changed many people's lives, but it's very demanding. It's very demanding. It asks such deep, profound work of its readers that it's best done in community. And of course, it's well done if I'm guiding it. So the difference is, this is a big, big journey. It's a life-shifting journey. And to have the warmth and the safety of a guide where I get to answer your questions, I get to talk about your stuck points. Most of all, I get to guide you moment by moment and step by step through these processes, which are very, very powerful. So it's kind of the best of all worlds, because I really get to work intimately with you as a community and guide you through these very profound processes. So it's the same information as my book, but you have someone holding your hand and guiding you, and also teaching and answering questions, because a lot of this is pretty counterintuitive, and God knows it's culturally counterintuitive. It's not what we get taught. So thank you for that great question.
Right. Well, thank you for that great answer. That was perfect. This is a great question from Deb, who says, I am a transformed woman because of your book and podcasts. My dating life at age 66 is dynamic. My question is about relationships of inspiration versus deprivation. When a relationship has been of deprivation, is it possible to shift it to one of inspiration?
I adore that question. That's a great question. I love all the questions so far, but this is like really, there's something I really want to say about this. Harville Hendrix, brilliant couples therapist, one of my heroes, says that it reaches a point in almost every intimate relationship where the thing you most need from your partner is the thing that they're least able to give you. And that's not the end of the relationship. That's the beginning of the relationship, because you're doing the same thing to your partner too. And the things they need from you and and that you need from them are the things that are going to make each of you the person you're meant to be. That's the hot fire that changes us and shifts us and creates what's called characterological change, which is deep and profound changes in the stuck and wounded places of our behavior. So that's the work we're supposed to do. Now, I want to give some caveats there. You need to have a partner who's willing. You need to have a partner who's listening. You need to be listening. You need to be willing. And if either of you has an addiction, a substance abuse problem, none of the changes will stick until you get sober. And if either of you has an unstabilized, serious psychiatric disorder, that needs to get stabilized for those changes to happen. So there's the willingness, there's the care, there's the treating each other with kindness. There is the commitment, the shared commitment. There's some fabulous, I'm just going to talk about sex for a little bit here. There's fabulous research in the arena of sexually healthy relationships. And what's discovered is the couples, when they encounter sexual difficulties, who think, well, I guess we're just not sexually compatible and that's how it's going to be and it's not going to work or we're not made for each other, are the ones with the least happy sex lives. The ones who, when problems come, think, oh yeah, we were bound to hit sexual problems. We need to grow together. That's what this is all about. Those are the ones with the happiest sex lives. The same is true with these wounds. They say that all intimacy is a process of rupture and repair. We get to save our relationships again and again, resurrect them with ourselves, with our spirit, with our core gifts. We've let our core gifts down 1,000,000 times, but we now will learn to dignify and honor them. We've done the same with our partners. Our partners have done the same with us. It's the greatest learning there is. And let me just say one other thing too. The act of saying, I am sorry, I made a mistake, is an act of profound intimacy. Listening to your partner when they describe to you ways that they felt hurt, even though you feel like that doesn't make sense, but you listen anyway because it's their truth. That's profound love. That deep listening is what builds love over time. So the answer is yes, 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 if both parties are willing, if there is no abuse, if there's kindness, if there's sobriety, and if people are, essentially mentally pretty solid. Now, you could be depressed, you could have anxiety, all of that. I was talking more about serious psychiatric conditions. So, yes, 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 that is the purpose of this work. And let me say something else. When you learn the processes that I'm going to be teaching, the honoring of your core gifts, and then techniques for being able to live those core gifts in their vulnerability, tenderness, power, passion, and beauty in your relationship in a way that is kind and truthful. That's what we need to do to create the change we want in our relationships. And that's what I got to say about that.
All right. Wow. Perfect. Now, I've got a great question that just came in from Patricia. You're talking about you need to be with somebody who's willing to listen. Patricia says, I've been working on myself for many months now, and your messages resonate so much with me. My husband, however, is very closed off and seems to not want to look at himself or acknowledge his wounds and negative contributions to our marriage. I have an understanding that I cannot control others and feel it is not my role to point out what he needs to be doing or try to convince him of anything and think he will be anything but receptive. Is there any acceptable approach I could take with him to help him seek a different path so we can start rebuilding the connection in our marriage?
Well, first of all, I want to honor your enthusiasm, your thoughtfulness, and I just feel your heartful passion for doing this in a good way. So 3,000 cheers for that. That's beautiful. Already, I feel the generosity of that approach in you, and that's the way to go. That's the first thing I want to say. The second thing I want to say is, I guess one question is, does your husband essentially cherish you? Does he try to be kind? Does he try to be good? Does he try to support you? If the answer is yes to those questions, that's a lot. I'll share with you something personal. I'm like Mr. Feelings. My husband is a tech guy. He's there for everyone else's feelings, but if you want to ask him to share his own vulnerability, it's probably not going to happen. He's probably not going to do it. That has been something that has been work for me and him to learn to deal with. But what I have found, and this is just my personal experience, is that in his presence, my heart feels like it has wings. There is such a profound safety and feeling of allowance and space from him that even though he can't do that with himself, I feel a tremendous sense of joy in his presence because of this incredibly radical and rich acceptance. I'm just telling this story because different people share it in different ways. And, often guys might have a harder time showing it in certain ways as well. So my question to you, Patricia, is his intention to be there for you? And if so, that's a precious thing. The other thing that I want to say is, this is a quote from Harville Hendrix. It's one I really love. He says, turn your anger into an ask. And I would say to you, turn your desire for that into an ask. If you can frame this as an ask, telling him why this would matter to you, honoring and acknowledging all the things he gives you, but telling about your longing for this and what it would mean, and crafting it into an ask that would be doable for him, very good chance he's going to want to be the kind of guy that can give you what you want. If not, there might be deeper discussions. I'll share another story with you. My dad's a Holocaust survivor. And he had terrible, terrible experiences in his childhood. And early on in his marriage, he said to my mom, Hetty, I have closed doors. And if we're going to marry each other, I need to ask you to never open those doors because I can't. He never said that again, and it took decades until he was able to open those doors. But his care was so great for her. And in time, he did learn to open those doors little by little. So that's my long-winded answer to say, treasure the intention, and know that this is going to be a slow and gradual process. But if your husband is there for you, it's worth the effort. His language may never, ever, ever be at your level of sophistication. But what he gives you, if he can give you, will be wonderful. And if he can't, you have a right to share your hurt, your need, your longing, and your disappointment, and let him kind of marinate in that, not in a blamey kind of way, but in the way of knowing that there's an unhappiness there or a longing there. We're allowed to do that if we don't do it in a blaming way. 12-step programs say it really great. Simple thing. Say what you mean what you say. Just don't say it mean. So those are my general thoughts there.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. Well, for those of you who are just joining us, we're here with Ken Page, learning about his upcoming course, Redefining Love, which begins Thursday, April 4th. And you can log on to intimacyandtruelove.com for all the details and to register. So let's get back to questions here. We've got a question here from Yulia, who wants to know if you can give some examples of what you mean by the gifts within.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna take you all on a little journey here to think about this. I'm gonna give some answers and as examples, and I'm gonna ask you questions so you can begin to discover these for yourself, your core gifts for yourself. Okay, I'll give an example first. A core gift that many people have, especially I would imagine that the kind of people that are passionate enough about intimacy to be here now, who care that deeply about it. Here's an example of a core gift. There are people who, when the connection between them and their loved ones is good, they really feel a tremendous amount of peace and joy. They register it in a deep way. So think about that for a minute. Is that something that's true for you? That when things are good, when things are honest, when things are clear, there's like a joy in you, a resonance inside of you. That's a sign of a core gift. Now, if you've got that, you've probably also got the other part, which is that when the connection is broken, when it's dishonored, when it is not treated right, when the signal gets lost of connection between you and the people you care about, you feel it deeply. And maybe you feel it deeply than other people. Other people just go on and They don't notice it, but to you it stings, or it hurts, or it wounds, or it leaves you feeling a little empty and bereft. In a world where people don't feel that way, you end up feeling like there's something wrong with you. And then you develop the mantra, you're too sensitive, or you're given the mantra, you're too sensitive. But if you are someone who feels the beauty of connection and the pain of broken connection in a deep, deep way, that's a core gift. That's a soul gift. That's a powerful part of who you are. And the more you honor that and treasure it and think, probably if I'm feeling that sadness or that pain, I'm probably right. There probably is a disturbance in the connection. And maybe a lot of other people aren't noticing it, but I notice it and I'm not crazy. There is something true here that I'm witnessing. So that's an example, and I think that might be an example that applies to many of you. And that core gift is a deep valuing of connection. Also then, the piece that would also go with that is when you break connection, it would hurt you. You might be the kind of person that wakes up at 3 in the morning and thinks, oh God, I really let someone down, or I missed that, or something like that. This is a core gift, a deep one that many people, I believe, who are going to attend this course and who are here now feel. Another one is loyalty. A core gift of loyalty means that you want to keep staying. And some people call that codependency, and not treated wisely, the gift of loyalty can be deeply codependent. But if you're the kind of person who just doesn't want to leave because you think you can't leave a relationship, you can't junk a relationship, it hurts me to do that. If you are that kind of person, that's a deep core gift of loyalty that, not honored, feels like weakness or codependency. And I got something to say about codependency too. Those of us who are codependent almost always have a core gift of generosity. I think codependency in almost all cases is generosity that has been wounded and that we don't know how to honor and take care of. So we use that generosity to get our needs met with someone who can't meet our needs. But the key in this case is to recognize, for all of you that think you might be codependent, think instead about how you love to give. Who could call that a pathology? That's not the pathology. The pathology is the dishonoring of that generosity. And that is when it becomes codependency. I'll give another example. Need. Are you someone who feels like a deep need for intimacy? And even you felt like, what's wrong with me? Like, I'm so needy. Well, here's the deal. Need shamed turns into neediness. Need honored turns into dignity and intimacy. When you honor your need, even if it's a need that at the moment your partner can't give you, but you go, there's nothing wrong with this need. I treasure this need. This need springs from my deepest self. It's a gift. You will behave with a dignity. You will have a custody, a custodianship of that need that will enable you not to become needy, not to become passive-aggressive, because we become needy and passive-aggressive as a result of dishonoring our need. I'll give one more example, truth-telling. How many people can't bear typical, normal dishonesty? The dishonesty, the subtle dishonesties, the inauthenticity that the world is filled with. Maybe it bothers you more than it bothers other people. That too would be the sign of a core gift. And if you tell yourself, why can't I be chatty like everybody else? That's a dishonoring of that quality in you. These are all some examples of dishonoring. I would say that often our core gifts fall into one of two categories. Core gifts of sensitivity, a sensitivity so profound that we might wonder what's wrong with us. But it's a portal to our very soul. It's a gift. And I promise you that any of you that resonate with that, the more you honor it, the more you treasure it, the more you find people with whom that sensitivity is safe, the more your life will shine and the more you will be able to give. That sensitivity almost killed me. It ruined a lot of decades of my life until I finally realized that people wanted it, that people loved it. And as I learned to treasure it, my world changed and it became a world that's filled with a lot of love. So that's one category that core gifts fall into, this gifts of sensitivity. Another is gifts of intensity, a fierce commitment to truth, a commitment to honesty, a commitment to authenticity, a commitment to go the extra yard into honesty, into realness, into creativity, into risk. Those are fierce gifts that scare a lot of people. But those are gifts. Those are an artist's gifts. Those are an artist of intimacy's gifts. So these are just some examples that help kind of, I think, give you an idea. But here is a fabulous, fabulous question to help you think of what your core gifts are. What are you timid to show in your intimate relationships? What parts of yourself do you feel timid to reveal? I'm not talking about like stories from your past that you might feel awkward or ashamed of. I'm talking about attributes of your personality, things you might want to express that you feel like, oh, I don't know if I can. That's like really tender, or I've gotten laughed at for that, or I've gotten teased for that, or put down for that. What are the qualities, and pardon the airplane outside, what are the qualities that you're timid to reveal in your intimate relationships? Just think of one. Whatever that is, that's a soul gift. That's a core gift. And imagine living a life where you surround yourself with people who make that gift feel safe. And can you imagine thinking of that gift as your genius? How might that be that this is a gift? And you develop gift eyes when you start thinking this way. In your most vulnerable places, in your most quirky places, in your most offended and immature and defensive places, you learn to say, what's the gift I'm protecting here? And then with your loved ones, you develop gift eyes. In the presence of their weirdest and worst behavior, you think, what's the treasure that they're protecting so convulsively? And when you do that, your heart opens, your world opens, and over time, your relationship opens as well in many, many cases. But that's the task that we need to do in life. It's an inside-out task. It's learning to treasure the parts of ourselves that are always whispering, maybe shouting, always beaming, always longing, always calling for us to listen. Those are the qualities that change our world. And the essence and the heart of this course is to help each one of you learn to listen to that music that's always going on inside of you.
Wow, you just blew my mind. Thank you for that. That was an enjoyable mind-blowing.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, that was good stuff. Let's follow up here with a question from Joyce about gifts. Joyce says, what if you've been so changed by life that you feel your original gifts have been altered? Should we try to resurrect them or go with the new gifts?
In my years of teaching, I don't think anyone ever asked me that question. I love that question. Well, if we were working together, and well, we are at this moment because you're here, I am going to ask you to check in with your inner mentor, that part of you that kind of is the you you're meant to be, and see what she has to say. Her answer is probably going to be amazing, and I will give you my answer too. My answer is, as you cherish your gifts, as you resurrect your gifts, they will teach you what they need. They will say to you, oh my God, this part of me has felt so wounded, so broken, that it's not ready to come out into the world. Or they might say to you, this is once what my gift looked like, but it has evolved and it's this now, and this is how it's wanting to express. And you will learn to tell the difference between the parts that have been orphaned for so long that they're just in shock, that they're not ready to meet the world yet, that they're not safe to meet the world, and they may need to just be held and seen and grieved with. And the parts of you that have changed and grown and evolved from the original gift and are bursting to make themselves known. The question will come as you develop an intimate relationship with your gifts. And you do that. That's actually, once we've completed the work of, not completed, but completed the process in this course of embracing and learning about our core gifts, the next one is about the care and feeding of our core gifts. Because our core gifts are our children. And they are our souls, they are our beauty, but we are their parents. We are the arbiters of how much of them are allowed out. So that's going to be a whole piece that we talk about, and there's rich, beautiful work around that too. So for now, though, that's my answer to the question, is that sometimes our gifts are just really wounded and they just need a lot of safety. And sometimes they've transformed and they need expression and fresh air and experimentation. And that's what I tell people at a certain point in the course. I say, your field has changed. Go out and experiment because you are different now. And it's true. And I have seen this countless times in this work. And it's kind of like a miracle. And I have so many, I mean, you can actually see on the landing page a number of people on video and in writing talking about how they've gone through these changes.
All right. Wow. Thank you so much. Looking at the clock here, we have time for a few more questions. But before we take those, I want to give a few details about Ken's course. Again, it's called Redefining Love. And this is going to be a mind-blowing 7-week journey under Ken's expert guidance, where you'll discover a powerful process to deepen your relationship with yourself and others and for more love, joy, and aliveness. And the 7-week course takes place on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, starting Thursday, April 4th. And if you can't join us live, this is a concern a lot of people have. That's fine. You're not going to miss any of the teachings. You'll receive audio and video recordings, transcripts, and all course handouts on your course homepage. And also, I'd like to remind you that the Shift Network offers a no-risk money-back guarantee on all of our courses, giving you a full 2 weeks until April 18th in this case, to make sure that it's a good fit. We want you to be happy. As an added option, all participants are welcome to connect in a private Facebook community group so you can connect with one another. Also, everyone who registers receives the Redefining Love bonus collection. First, you'll receive a PDF compilation of 5 articles from Ken Page entitled Gifts for Your Intimacy Journey. Next, you'll get an audio dialogue with Ken and Ariel Ford called The 3 Most Powerful Spiritual Practices for Everyone Seeking Love. Then you'll receive an audio dialogue with Ken and Margaret Paul entitled Self-Love, The Key to Finding Your Beloved. And when you register by midnight Pacific on Saturday, March 30th, you'll receive an extra gift, and that is an audio meditation package from Ken entitled The Inner Mentor Meditation Package. So before we get back into questions, Ken, let me ask you, what are you most looking forward to sharing in your upcoming course?
Well, so I guess the joy that I get again and again is watching people's transformation as they discover their core gifts, think about their core gifts, honor them. The change is pretty mind-blowing. I am thrilled at the experience of people discovering their inner mentor because that guide brings such ongoing joy and wisdom. These are things I guess I would say that the first thing of watching people's fields change as they discover and honor their core gifts and they feel themselves kind of really reorganizing in the deepest level around those gifts. I think there's nothing more beautiful to me than seeing that. And seeing people's lives change as a result of that. And I've seen it so many times that it's just part of what I know happens. And The other piece is the fun of the inner mentor, that you actually will have a guide that will, I know people that their inner mentor tells them what clothes to wear, like wear the boots or whatever. The inner mentor is going to surprise you and delight you, but mostly it will connect you with love. Those are some of the things I'm thrilled about. And personally, one thing I'm thrilled about is I love hearing people tell the stories of the shifts and the transformation that happens to them, because it does, and it does again and again. And these things are just joys to me. And I love facilitating these changes in people. Oh, let me also just say one thing about this bonus, if I could. The last bonus mentioned, this is something I just did and I'm pretty excited about. It's actually using the inner mentor process. There's a series of meditations. There's the basic one. Then there's one of using your inner mentor to help you discover your professional purpose. Another one using your inner mentor to help you deepen in your spiritual life. So that's like a really cool bonus that I'm very excited about as well.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Let's get back into questions here. We got a question here from Grace who says, how can a divorced couple with children maintain a relationship that's cordial and affectionate?
Okay, I want to actually recommend Catherine Woodward Thomas's book, Conscious Uncoupling, which is a rich and beautiful book that will help you with that. I'm going to give you my answer too, but I just do want to offer that as a fabulous resource. The way that you framed that question captured the essence of the intention I would hope you have. You captured it with a quality of friendliness and warmth and hope and possibility that was just in itself radiated a kind of positivity. So I just want to point that out because that was great. And that is the intention that you would want to try to do this with. I think that when the two of you are focusing on your deep shared love for your child or children, that's when you'll be at your best. Now, I want to also remind you that in your parenting, probably each of you had complementary qualities, which had problems and gifts. And now that you're not together, the problems in your partner's qualities will probably be more scary and difficult and frustrating for you. Similarly, your partner's feelings about that toward you. That's the place where deeper communication is needed. There's a process that I teach in this course called the AHA process, and I just want to share it with you briefly. It's a powerful process for connecting, and the 3 stages are the awareness. In the awareness stage, you notice what you're feeling, and you notice what your ex is feeling. The second stage is honoring, and nothing works without that stage. That's where you say to yourself, it makes sense that I feel this way because, so that you're not second guessing, you're validating that you're not crazy, that you're feeling what you're feeling for a reason. Then you do the same with your partner. It makes sense that he feels that way because. When you've done those things and the two of you do them together, something amazing happens. You begin to be able to find action, and that is the last stage in this, and that's action that's mutually beneficial. And I'm just going to share another piece of research. I love research, and I take it seriously, and I study it, and I integrate it into the work. But in fact, one of the most powerful methods for a couple to get through and past their problems and have a relationship not deteriorate, this would be true for exes too, is that both of you actually do a version of the inner mentor process. And this is clinically proven to work. And what it is that each of you picture your biggest problems in communication around your child-rearing questions, the places where you're most likely to get stuck. You envision a third party who's wise and caring and wants the best for both of you and your children. And you each think what that person would say to you around the area of conflict. You both share that, and then you come up with a shared intention. This is clinically proven in powerful ways. It's called the marriage hack. It's clinically proven in all relationships to reduce deterioration of communication. And that's also the inner mentor concept in another way. So that's something I'd like to share with everybody.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to a question here from Christina, who wants to know, is this lifetime work?
Oh, yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And that's a good thing. That's a beautiful thing. Now, I want to say two parts to that. The discovery of this understanding of developing gift eyes, you will do that in the period of this course. You'll need to remember through the rest of your life, but that foundational perspective shift will happen through this course. It will change you, and my hope is that it will change you pretty permanently. Yes, it's ongoing work. And let me tell you, your inner mentor every day is going to surprise you with wisdom and risk and adventure and suggestions. So yes, it's a constant process. Even in a fabulous relationship, because love is, it's a spring of newness. And every time we tap into love, it's different at every moment because it is a spring of newness inside us. So the answer is, parts of it hopefully will change your life forever, and parts of it will be an ongoing, lifelong process of change.
Okay, thanks. Well, let's take a question here from Christy. She says, my husband and I are best friends, but due to physical issues, we haven't been able to be intimate. Is there any energetic way, maybe meditating together, we can have the same level of intimacy?
Oh, yes. Well, I have a lot to say about that too. Meditating together works wonderfully. There is a world of resources out there, even just on YouTube, free resources of tantric exercises couples can do. You know, research shows that holding the hand of a loved one reduces blood pressure and anxiety. Just holding the hand. If you and your partner hold hands, if you take your partner's hand and hold it to your cheek and breathe together, you will experience a mixture of eros and tenderness that is out of this world. There's so many things that you can do, and that can include genital touch, gentle genital touch. The body is one giant erogenous zone, and the body's skin is an organ of the heart. Touching in any way, when you do it with love and cherishing, is erotic and beautiful. I would say to you, experiment. And I want to tell you a little bit of a story here. I know a man, his name is Siddiqui, and he's a friend of the family. And this is a bit of a long story, but I'll try to shorten it. He was a dancer, a brilliant dancer in Africa, and he was stricken with polio. He went into the woods and just like kind of lived as a hermit in despair. And one day he had a vision. He felt like God talked to him, and God said, dance. And he was infuriated. He said, you took my legs away. I have no legs. I can't dance. I have these stumps, these strand legs that can't do anything. How dare you tell me to dance? And the message came to him, you must dance, and you must teach other people to dance. This man, who has arms the size of tree trunks now, dances on his hands. He has a dance troupe. He puts his legs over his shoulders. He's very famous. He's all over the place. And he dances on his hands. He has a whole dance troupe. And he goes around the world teaching people in wheelchairs, people who are paraplegic, people with all kind of disabilities, that of course they can dance, because dancing is just using your being to get with the beautiful flow and celebrate it through whatever kind of movement you could do. What I want to say to you and your partner or your husband is you both can dance, and you can dance erotically, and you can be wild, and you can be creative, and you can be risky, and you can play, and it's your turf, because if there's love there, you can do this.
Wow, what a great story. Thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful. Great. Let's go to a question here from Melissa. She wants to know, what do you do if you've never felt real love from someone?
Mm-hmm. That's an important question. I want to ask you, Melissa, if you go through your life, I guess one thing that I'm not sure of is if you mean romantic love only or any kind of love. What I would say to you is if you have been through a life where there's been no kind of feeling of love, then you are a survivor. And that you are here is a miracle and is beautiful and is precious and is heartening. Heartening to me, heartening to all of us. I would say go back through your life and think about moments that you've had, even with people that were minor, even with pets, even with spiritual people, because my guess is that somewhere there has been the experience of love. And if not, I want to ask you, what is the love inside of you that has brought you this far? I'm going to come back to that, but I'm going to say if you meant romantic love, if you meant that you've never experienced romantic love, what I would say to you is that you have been protecting a part of your soul. All of us, and I was chronically single for decades and decades. I created a support group for chronically single psychotherapists. I had it bad. It's because you're protecting parts of your soul that you have not learned to protect in other ways. Starting with your gifts is the relearning. Remembering the people and things with whom your heart and soul felt safe, or imagining those people if you haven't had them. Remembering the animals with whom that's been true is the other part of this journey. What I would say is as you learn to treasure your gifts, and as you learn to only choose and look for those people with whom you feel treasured, you will begin to find them. This is not easy stuff, folks. I'm not telling you this is going to happen in a minute. What I am saying is there's a journey here, and you can take it. And that's what I say to you. There is a journey here, and it's a journey toward the love inside of you and other possibilities of love, and you can take it.
Okay, great. Perfect. Thank you so much. Let's see if we can squeeze one last question in here. We're almost out of time. This is from Sung, who says, can you show me how to avoid hurting a man? For example, what words and actions should be avoided?
Oh, okay. And I think this is not just for hurting a man, but for hurting any human being. If you're in a relationship, do not go to end game in your conversations. Do not intimate, do not allude that if this doesn't work, you're going to leave, unless you're at that point that you mean it down to your bones and you're not saying it to get them to change. You're saying it because it's just a stark truth. Until then, don't go there. Marianne Williamson says it beautifully. She says, both feet in until both feet out. So don't allude to end game in your conversations during difficult times. That's one thing you don't say. Another thing is to be really, really careful about criticism, especially when you're really annoyed and your criticism hits at the roots of a person's character and you're demeaning their character. A third thing is, again, turn your angers into asks. Guys and everybody respond so much better when they're given an ask than an anger. Often, it feels really vulnerable to ask, and it feels less vulnerable to get angry. But the asking is a rich ask. It's a rich way to build a bridge of intimacy. Again, relationships are rupture and repair. But the key here for everybody of any gender is do say what you mean. Do mean what you say. But do not say it mean. That's the golden rule.
All right. Wow. Beautiful. This has just been such a rich hour. It's gone so fast. I want to thank our viewers for being with us today and for all of your fantastic questions. Redefining Love starts Thursday, April 4th. And again, you can visit intimacyandtruelove.com to learn more and to register. So Ken, before we cut you loose, do you have any final words for our viewers?
I do. I have a couple things to say briefly. One thing I have to say is this. It's something I left out from the last part. It's this. It's to remember that relationships are rupture and repair, and you will hurt your loved one. And your loved one will hurt you. Even if it's not conscious, your right will always be your partner's left facing each other. Your experiences are different. The act of saying, I'm sorry, the act of acknowledging where you have let love down is an act of greatness and an act of beauty. We can always or almost always do repair if we really mean it. So know that, folks. Don't let something fester because of your shame that you did wrong. Bring it up to your partner and watch what unfolds when you do that. That's one thing I want to say. The other thing I want to say is this. The honoring of your gifts is the beginning of the life you're meant to have, or the continuance of the life you're meant to have. And I know that to be true from the work that I do. And the other thing I want to say is, for those of you who feel called to do this, do it. For those of you who don't, I wish each of you luck and blessings on your journey. And it was a joy to get to do this with you, and I loved the questions. So I guess that's about all that I have to say. I hope to see many of you on the other side in class.
All right. Wow. Thank you again, Ken. It has been an absolutely lovely conversation with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
You bet. Well, once again, thank you to everyone who joined us today. On behalf of all of us at the Shift Network, I wish you well and look forward to having you on this course or perhaps another one in the future. Have a great night, everyone.